I am Izzy Nally. I'm with APB and Associates. So we are project managers, project management consulting firm. We have done very large contracts within the government, and we've also done quite a few very large projects that are construction project management as well. We're very proud of all the work that we've done and as well as our instructors that we have too. Now, me personally, I know how many choices there can be, how much information there is on the internet when you type in project management certification or how to become a project manager. There is a lot of marketing out there that leaves us confused. And I've been in that situation personally about 2 years ago. And I wanted to host these workshops, these information sessions to present this information to you. So, yes, of course, and I think everyone expects, I'll tell you a little bit about what we do and what we provide, but that's not the main purpose of this presentation. The main purpose is to empower you and give you the knowledge and let you know what those choices are out there, and let you come to your own decision on what route's going to be best for you. So, we're going to be covering project management. I'll interject quite a bit of details, and please feel free at any time to ask questions. If we're at a spot, generally I can see you unmute. So, I'll see that that question is coming. So, project management, it's a big career, and when I say that, I mean that there's so many aspects within project management that you can choose career paths of that. Example, I started with advising communications advisory on projects. I also worked within change management of projects, and I would work with the PMO team or the project management office what was occurring within these larger corporations, Fortune 500 or government contracts. And we would find that there was a big difference between people that had had proper project management training, that had certification, and those that had just been in it for experience. And it's really important for the success of the project that everyone is speaking the same language. Meaning, when we say, these are the key steps that have to happen for a successful project to be accomplished, and then all of the key forms and documents and just general best practices and how to function as a team and how to communicate to each other, all of that is enhanced when we've all had a very similar training that puts us into that spot. So, things that we provide, I'll be mentioning, is we provide principles of project management. So it's kind of an intro course. And then we have the PMP exam prep. And more importantly, there's also the CAPM, which is the CAPM certification as well. And I'll go through a little bit of the differences. There's a new update, brand new update to the CAPM, the CAPM, that is going to differentiate it, which is fantastic. And the key factors will be how much project experience do you have? Okay, so these key things that we are going to cover today, got two screens. Okay, there we go. Make sure I can see the other one. Is project management as a career, the benefits of certification, and then I included, because I get this question a lot, is what's the difference between the CAPM and the PMP? And then we have some contact information for you, which I've also sent out to. All right. Project management as a career is growing. Now, just about any business will tell you this. Of course, right now, everyone's hurting for qualified professionals that want to work and put the work in. But projects specifically, if we look at the IT world and implementing new things within the business industries, anything that has an official start date and end date of the project itself is a project. And I clarify that because there is a difference between operations and just running programs. projects, there is a proven set of skills for one, but also processes to implement within a project itself and how to manage it because there's a lot of moving pieces. And generally, projects will have a lot of contractors on as well. And these are very, very much needed. If you are wanting to at all get a career within projects within the government, a PMP is required, and that is provided by PMI, which I'll go into that a little bit too. Now, looking at projects and the need for project managers, I will tell you that it is not a job for someone who's not organized. Like, you need to be organized or you need to be willing to improve your organizational skills. Now, if you're like me, where I'm like always pushing for the next self-development, I'm always pushing for the next certification, I'm always trying to figure out how I can be better at what I do and smarter, not harder, and all of those aspects. If that is your personality type, then project management is awesome for you. If you love coordinating different pieces together and working on projects and you love that team aspect, project management is for you. And it is a career. So one thing I tell people all the time, I got my MBA, and in my MBA, they did not stress enough during the MBA program that project management is its own career. Yes, you can have an MBA and you can work as a project manager and things of those nature, but I wasn't prepared for the vocabulary. I wasn't prepared for the processes. I wasn't prepared with all the terms and just how things worked and the politics among all of that. And even if you have an MBA, if you have the PMP as well, that that's automatically another salary boost. And I will say, in my professional opinion, that you could have a bachelor's and a PMP and make just as much. That really, I tell most people, I'm like, you need an MBA if you're going to be specifically working in like an HR department that really wants you to have it, or you're going to be in a C-suite. So COO, COO, CEO, CFO, and along those names. Project management is a career that is completely obtainable. So if you don't have any project management experience, you can start with a CAPM, and that can get you your foot in the door. If you're wanting one of those higher positions, get your CAPM and work your way up to the PMP. You can also volunteer on projects to get that experience. And I say that because when we go into what are the qualifications to get these, to be able to get, to be able to take these exams, you do have to submit an application and get approved before you can even take the PMP exam. So I'll come into that a little bit too. So when we're talking about the need for project managers, please know this is not a career that's going away. So we have another business that's also supply chain and logistics. It's the same thing over there. It's not a career that's going away. So these are really great careers to be in. All right. So a lot of times they're like, show me the money. How much am I going to make with this? Project management is going to range from 60 to really 140. I've definitely seen some jobs with 140. And of course, as your experience goes up, that's where that goes up. But making around 100K a year is pretty average. That 90 to 100K is pretty average for a project manager, especially if you have a certification. That's going to get you into the door a lot faster. The reason being is if someone has two resumes in front of them and they see one with lots of project experience and they don't have the certification versus they do, they're going to go with the one that has the certification. Now, what about these certifications, right? What kind of certifications really get us that raise? Well, the PMP is offered by Project Management Institute, PMI. That is the Project Management Institute. It's internationally recognized. So once you get your PMI, PMP, and you've got enough projects experience under your belt and you feel confident, you can do consulting work. You can hop from one project to another. you don't necessarily have to go have a role. Now, the roles are nice because typically there's benefits involved. And there can be some really great benefits when you work in the government sector as well. So on average, we've shown through a lot of research that you can typically get about a 25% salary increase by getting the PMP exam. Now, there is other training out there. So one of the competitors is Google. So Google is now offering project management certification. Now, I've looked into this, actually enrolled in it so that I could check it out and see what it is. And the Google project management certification actually takes 6 months to a year to accomplish. And it is on the Coursera platform. So that is available. However, it is not going to be recognized as the PMI PMP is, because they see Google, they're going to think more tech, more, not high end, but more like simple projects. Versus when we see the PMP, that is government, that is banks, that is healthcare, that is education. So all of these other industries, including IT, the PMP is established and there's tons and tons of resources with it. Google is fantastic if maybe your goal is to get to Google. But I've worked with companies that have worked with Microsoft, that they have worked in the healthcare and a lot of these Fortune 500 companies. So it it does teach you, but it doesn't carry the same weight as the PMI PMP. And I honestly, I don't think it ever will. Do I think it's a great training to do? Yes. And if you're like me, where I'm just like, give me all the training, uh, you know, it's worth checking out um, in that aspect. But I would do it in conjunction with the PMP. I wouldn't do it by itself, if that makes sense. Okay. So when we're talking about jobs and pay and what type of careers, I want to open it up to some questions while we're here. So tell me whether you want to do it in the chat or you want to unmute and say it, but what industry are you in? And also, what industry are you wanting to be in with your project management certification or just becoming a project manager? I'll pull my chat up so I can see.
I'll speak.
Okay, awesome.
Hi, I just joined. I'm sorry, a little late. I was in a meeting, but for me, I've been a fitness manager for the past decade. Um, and I'm now transitioning to a recovery clinic. So next step up as a general manager, but I have interest in project management just to kind of figure out like what's my niche. I love leading, I love leadership. Um, I love helping people, and I'm pretty good at it. I feel to relate on a level, and to keep people's respect and trust. So I just really want to pursue that more, and I'm here because I want to learn what project management is all about, to see if this is a field for me to worth investing in.
Yeah.
I know the money is good, so I know that it will pay. But I want to make sure that this is something that if I invest in a PMP or a certification or a Scrum or anything more than that, it's something that as a career change that I would love to enjoy. As far as which field, um, I guess I still got to figure that out. But right now, let's just say project management in its entirety, of learning where that can take you in different fields. I love tech and IT, education. So right now I'm just in the early stages and trying to find free informational workshops, foundation type workshops like what I'm on now, just to get more information of really what it is. And everything that I know of so far, it seems right up my alley of what I really want to get into. So that's why I'm here, because I
Okay.
have an initial spark of interest, and I want to make sure before I invest, because the certifications are quite expensive.
They are. Yeah.
So, and which I am an educated, I've been in school. I want to go, I want to be an educator one day. I mean, in my field, I kind of am, but so I understand the importance of investing. So I will. I just want to make sure this is something that I solely want, and as a career change, that it's something that is going to be right up my alley. So far, I think so. I'm right in the initial stages of learning really what it is, what I'd be doing, and everything like that, and then move forward with that transition.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, because this helps me cater what I'm talking about too, because I could go in a million and one different directions. All right. So anyone else? Anyone else want to let me know which area you're in, what area you're thinking about, what interests you about project management? No? Okay. All right. So let's look at fitness. So I can completely relate to this area because my first degree was sports medicine, and then I went into public health education, and then I went into therapy, and then I went my MBA. So yes, I say forever learner, and and how this applies. I will start with saying project management, I apply it to my business and my life, like, all the time. It has changed my perception and my perspective of how I tackle and engage in work. So I think that is a huge takeaway in itself. Within the industries, it's slightly different, and the intensity of project management is slightly different. The tech world and well, I say the tech world is probably the most complicated because there's so many different people with different personalities, and being able to communicate those and work the way you work is slightly different. Um, but if you think about it, like if I was a business owner, I am a business owner, but like let's pretend like you're a business owner and you have a project and you want to see whether it's worth funding that project. Is it worth putting all of the time, effort, and resources into that project? So someone can submit a project proposal, and then once the proposal is accepted, you would then create a charter, and you would break down the project and you would put all this upfront work in, because that would cost, and we'll just use like easy money terms, but like maybe it's going to cost you $1,000 to do all the prep work. But in one of the projects we were on was a $40 million project. So spending $1,000 in the whole scheme of a $40 million project was chump change. And it was worth spending that to say and iron it out and go, is this really worth pursuing this project? Do I have everything lined out and prepped and ready? And then once you're in the project, you're going to continue to do reports and evaluations to make sure that you're on target. Because if something goes wrong at the 20 million mark, and this is a real case scenario, something starts going wrong at the 20 million mark, and you're like, hey, the team's just not jiving, like or we're running out of resources. We've got a lot of issues. I don't think we should pursue. We're going to still save 20 million, and we call it a loss at that point and reevaluate. There's a lot of amazing skills that are put into place, such as tracking all of our communication methods and putting in requests, and how do we make change orders. Like we were going to do something this way, but now we need to change it up. We need to evaluate, is that change really worth it? Because when you're working on a team in multiple departments, those communications are essential. And documenting like how people prefer their communications, how people prefer the reports, who are the stakeholders, who's paying for this and sponsoring this, and are they satisfied? And there's a lot of aspects that go into a project. and managing schedules and what's supposed to be done in phase one, phase two, phase three. And really, the PMI or the PMP especially talks a lot about leadership and a lot about managing teams because as a project manager, you're not doing all the work, meaning you're not creating the coding for this and you're not implementing the training per se. You are the manager who are managing all these pieces. You're the one that's creating the schedule and checking in with them and saying, hey, is there any problems that are coming up? And maybe someone's going, yeah, like I'm having a hard time hearing back from this team. So then you go over and you're like, hey, and you're being the mediator between the two of them. And you're coordinating all of it to make sure that the project success is really there. So when we talk about leadership, like you have to have amazing communication skills and the ability to maybe it's like, hey, the team's really stressed and we need a fun day. Like even things like that are definitely implemented. Now, with the PMP, again, you can change within the different fields that you want to be in. It is actually fantastic to have a project manager that's very familiar with lots of different industries because I can learn something that's going well in one industry and I can carry that over into another industry as well. Now, within a recovery clinic or even, working with a client, I'm working with a client and I'm like, okay, here's where we're at and here's where we need to be, within coaching or whatever it might be. You can say, okay, here's everything that we're going to go over. I need you to agree to this. I need your buy-in so that we can implement all of the work that we're going to do and so that you fully understand the scope of what we're going to carry out and what the end goal is. What does done look like? And I highly recommend if you haven't read any of Brene Brown's books, those are fantastic.
Who?
Uh, Brene Brown,
Okay.
Brene Brown. She is fantastic. I think she even has a series on Netflix. She's done a lot of research on vulnerability and communications, and she brought her therapy degree into, which is one of the reasons I love her. She brought her therapy degree into the business world. And she talks a lot about like how we communicate on teams and projects and being able to communicate what does done look like? What are my expectations? Saying who's accountable versus who is responsible. So we define a lot of this within project management. And I was saying at the beginning, like I implement these things into everything I do now in my life, in my work. I view work so much different now that I've learned all these skills and I've watched it in place and I've watched how the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. And seeing those differences and seeing also like how much respect and how beautiful work can be. And it doesn't have to be this hostile, crazy people just throwing stuff and going, you catch that, you catch that. But we can actually say within Agile, and you mentioned Scrum, that maybe that we're going to work in a 2 week sprint. And we're going to say ahead of time, like, this is all the work that I need to do in these 2 weeks. And if the boss throws something else at you that needs to be done, you can say, do you want me to implement this into this sprint? And if so, what other item needs to come out so that I'm not taking on the world? So it really protects us as employees as well. And it helps really create a lot of boundaries so that we can actually create a manageable work life. Now, I will say for the project manager themselves, like we do have to watch our time because it's really easy to get caught up in all this stuff. So time management skills are really important. I hope that answers your question. With Scrum and Agile and all of that, you can enter into the path of Scrum and get to know the world and then do project management. Or you can enter in project management and I often get thrown into Scrum. And I'll probably eventually get my Scrum certification too, just because I've had to step in and be a Scrum Master plenty of times. And if you're like, what in the world is she talking about, Scrum Master? So it's like a miniature project manager within project management. So when we're working in those 2 week sprints and we're managing the goals, so there's a thing called SAFe model. And so there's different layers and how we can pass work down. So the Scrum Master will work in tandem with the project manager. We were on a very large project and we actually had multiple teams, and each Scrum Master had 2 teams that they worked with, and the project manager worked with the Scrum Masters. So there was this flow of communication. Um, and in Scrum Masters, there's a lot more technicalities to it. You're doing a little bit more reports and things on that nature versus the project managers gathering all of that and putting it into a pretty PowerPoint to present it to everyone. So that's a little bit of the difference there. Scrum Masters can make pretty good money as well. So you can make around 60 to 80 a year being a Scrum Master versus project management. As I said, that in my experience and what I've seen, and I recommend check out LinkedIn Jobs. Um, those can go up to, I've seen some around 200 as well. But I would say those aren't super common. Around that 140 mark is a little bit more common. Okay. So yes, keep asking questions. So about us, APB. So our owner is minority and veteran owned, and we actually are in quite a few different colleges. Him and the team, they're very adamant at making sure that we're in HBCUs as well. And so we really try to push diversity as much as possible. So on our team, we actually have quite a few women, which is hasn't been super common in the industry. So we are we are just a very diverse group, and it's really fun. Um, so we do lots of different certifications. So we do provide Scrum, Safe, Agile, all of those. We're actually getting ready to add on construction project management onto our list as well. So on this slide, just so that you know that like project management is in every single industry. I really don't think there's one industry that we don't touch with project management. One of our instructors, she actually works in the government and she helps manage the projects for the Navy ships being built. Pretty cool. And then one of our other lead instructors, he is in Silicon Valley and he's very tech heavy. And he has his son who's I think like 12 or 13. He's in project management junior entrepreneur or was it an entrepreneurship program for that too. So like it's very cute, it's very sweet. We are really in it. So that's one thing I think our classes are really unique because they are live. They are online, they are live. You have to be there. We need you to have your cameras on when we're doing it. And we have conversations and we really get to know everyone and try to put like your scenarios or things that you would like into play because we all get to learn from each other too, which is really cool. So as we were talking about, like not sure which industry to go into, we might have someone in government, someone in transportation, someone in healthcare, someone that has like a bizarre field that you've never even heard of, and you get to hear their scenarios. And then this is key. You now know these people and you're connected with them and you stay in contact. I love teaching networking. And it's all of these contacts that you know within the project management world that they're on a project and they're like, oh, hey, like Kathy, we're going to have her help me out with this. Hey, Kathy, are you available? Same thing. Like, oh, Ron's great at this. I had a whole training program with him, and I know he's really good about this and how he communicates. I would love to have him on the project to help me out too. Those are perks of being in live groups. In fact, I throw myself in live group trainings all the time just so I can get to know more people in certain industries because it really is who you know when in project management. And you will get to know more and more people. And knowing us, we also stay in contact with people as well. And then of course, like me, I have my own business and then I also work as a contractor and then I also work with other businesses. So you can take on projects. And I have one friend, she takes on projects so that she can travel the world. because the PMP is internationally recognized. So these are some of the key areas that I just wanted to highlight was government, education, and small business, right? COVID happened. And anybody that had kids in school when they implemented online learning, who didn't wish that a project manager was involved in that? I almost thought about like volunteering just to help because it was so poorly managed. Projects fail without project managers all the time. All right. So looking at this, we just wanted to emphasize, um, the return on investment. That unless you just get the PMP and you absolutely just don't do anything with it intentionally, you are going to get a return on investment. I think like the MBA shows to be a really high return on investment, but the PMP is just as high. And I spent 40,000 on my MBA, and I spent a whole lot less on the PMP. So again, we're just emphasizing PMI it is a globally recognized that it sets you apart from everyone else. It is very, very well known. Versus if you get some random other project management certification, it's not going to be known. Everyone knows what PMI and PMP is. That would need to know, right? Like in the business world. Okay. That being said, there is the 35 hours that you need to get in order to take your PMP exam. And that is where you have a lot of options. So I will say, like, there you can type PMP exam prep into Google, and so many options will pile up. Now, the benefit of doing it at a college, like what we do, is that the college often has workforce development scholarships that you can then apply for. And we have a couple of colleges where people will get it almost completely paid for. So you can do it that route. If you are with a company, check with the HR department and see if they will pay for it or reimburse you. So that's another option. PMP versus CAPM. Now, as I mentioned, this is changing a little bit with the CAPM. So the CAPM is now incorporating a ton of business analytics, which is really saying like this used to be very much seen as like the lesser than kind of the certified associate. It was the step in if you weren't qualified yet for the PMP. But now they're adding in all this business analytics so that you have an additional career path. Because a business analyst is a career. So just an example, it's either this or this, with a big or in the middle. I like to give visuals. I'm a very visual person. So you can have a high school diploma, no training, or no experience, and then you get our 23 hours or someone else's 23 hours. Hopefully it's going to be hours. Or you can have a high school diploma and 1,500 hours of experience. And I would say that way you know all the terms and you know all the methodologies. A lot of times what we see is people, even with 1,500 hours, they still want to do the 23-hour training because they need to be prepared for the exam. You need to learn project management in the right ways and kind of what I keep calling the politics of it, of how it really works in the real world. But you also need to know what the exam wants you to say. So trainings out there, they can be one or the other. It's rarely both. And then I will also say that we are an authorized training provider. So we get our content straight from PMI, and PMI changes their exam every 2 years. So we know up to date what's going to be on the exam. Versus, I will tell you, like, and if you want to explore it, I do recommend exploring it. But there are free videos, free trainings out there on YouTube from people. They might have taken their exam 6 years ago, 4 years ago, even 2 years ago. And it's not going to be what is actually on the exam now. So the exam prep should be preparing you for the exam. Okay. So for the PMP, you either need a 4-year degree or a secondary degree. So you can have one or the other. If you do a four-year degree, you need 4,500 hours of experience. If you have a secondary degree, it needs to be 7,500 hours. So secondary meaning high school. And then one of those combined with, so regardless, you have to have the 35 hours of project management exam prep training for the PMP. Now, a question that I get quite often is, what if I don't have all these hours yet? So you can do your 35 hours of exam prep and you can still be working on projects. You actually have 5 years after getting your 35 hours to get the experience you need to prepare for the PMP. Now, I don't recommend that because what we already see a lot of people is exam fear. And again, the exam changes every 2 years. They get a little bit of the exam fear and then they don't take their exam. So when you go to do the 35 hours, have in your mind, when you submit the application, you have a year. So have in your mind of when you want to take the exam, and you're going to have to prepare hard for it. This is the PMP is a very challenging exam. But if you've studied and you've had the prep, you will be fine. We have not had anyone fail. What we have had is people that get scared and they don't take it because of that fear. We've had person, they took it 3 weeks after our 35-hour class and they passed. She was also studying pretty intensely during that whole time. It generally takes about 3 months to really strongly prepare for the PMP. So I will be completely honest and upfront about that. All right. So things that you'll learn is processes, practices, industry terms. I know we're running a little behind on time. Agile and team management, we will teach you Agile. Agile is the way to go. Agile includes the Scrum. Agile includes the working through project management softwares. That is the way to go. So that hopefully by the end of all of this, like you could step in interim as a Scrum Master if you needed to, because you would know enough about the project. You would know enough about how Agile works. Okay. So I will send you, I haven't updated that one. Clearly changed my hair color since then. Uh, I've gone back natural. So I will send you some information about our upcoming trainings. We do have actually 3 upcoming trainings. So we have the PMP exam prep, we have a principles of project management, and then we have an intro to Agile and Scrum. So if you want to dive right into the PMP, we have that starting. I believe it's next week or the week after. So it's within the next week or two. And the same with principles and the same with intro to Agile and Scrum. Again, these are at colleges who are in the workforce development departments. So I will put that contact information in there too, because if you have questions and you want to look at getting a scholarship or something of that nature, you would want to contact them and get that started. All right. So before we go, I know we're running like 8 minutes over. Do you all have any questions? And you can submit those in the chat. You can say them out loud. So Catherine said, I'm coming from theater. Yes, we have had theater people in our programs before. And moving into communications and community organization. Yes. Um, again, having a public health education, you'll see a lot of overlap in those and creating the processes. Oh, once you put those processes and all those documents into play, like it makes life so much easier. It makes communication so much easier. You can say, here, this is how we are going to do this. These are all the forms that I need. These are what we need to do, and can create those step by steps and be more organized and productive. It's wonderful. All right. So if you do find that you have some questions after this is over, which we are getting ready to wrap this up, feel free to email me. More than happy to email you back a response. Or you can hop on and join us for the next one. You'll hear a lot of the same things, but we never know where my brain will go or what other questions we'll get. So it might be slightly different, but you can use the same link you did to register for this one, and you can register for the next one as well. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope this was helpful and insightful. All right. Well, I hope to talk to you again. All right. Thank you. Bye.